The following episode contains sensitive topic information that may not be appropriate for young listeners, as well as religious or other views that may not reflect those of the Sirens team.
Hello, everybody. Hello, Sirens listeners and fans of all ages. I'm in a weird mood tonight, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, we know we all made it to another record. Yeah.
Barely.
We're here. We're here for each other. We're here for our listeners. Ryan's feeling under the weather. Bless his heart.
Yeah, I got a little laryngitis, so I won't be doing a whole lot of talking, but I'm sure I'll have something to say.
Well, and Lindsay's going to be doing most of the talking tonight because we are bringing our listeners a personal experience from Lindsay and her supernatural encounters and things that have happened to her over the years. So we thought that might be interesting to you listeners. I'm sure it's going to be interesting to me and Ryan too.
I can't wait.
So how you doing, Lindsay? Are you ready?
I'm doing good. I wrote most of it down so like I wouldn't forget anything. But I don't know that I'll read some of it, but some of it I'll just like go through different parts. I don't know. We'll see.
And you'll take questions?
Yeah. Because there's a few different ones. So I can stop after each little one and we can like talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll break it down.
Because I don't want to just like read for 30 minutes straight.
Yeah.
But yeah. And also,
What?
I'm just going to preface this by saying I'm also a little skeptical of all of these stories. Like my brain wants to make them make sense, like logically.
Yeah.
But sometimes you just can't. So I don't know.
So some of your own stories you're skeptical about. Okay.
Yeah, because
you want to be able to
your
explain.
brain wants to explain stuff. And it's like, no, that wasn't really what you thought. That wasn't what happened. But when you can't rationalize something,
true.
What then? Like I don't know. Okay. So like I said, I have a few different ones, and I'm just gonna start off from when I was like small, because I've had a few just over the years. Like it didn't all happen at once. It's just been randomly here or there. So for my first one, when I was little, Courtney and I shared a room, and this was, where was this house? In Waxhaw? Is that where it was?
Yeah.
So this house was really small, and we mainly shared a room until we were like, in high school almost. Over the years. But so we had a lot of experience sharing rooms. But in this particular room, the bedroom was set up really weird, and I was too little to have like a big girl bed. So I still had the toddler beds that were like small, really short, little to the ground. So in the room, the way the room was set up, our beds were perpendicular. So the head of my bed was like at the end of her bed, and there was a nightlight in between, right? So can you just imagine, like, as a little kid, you're sleeping, you've got your nightlight, the house is really quiet, everything else is dark, just rolling over and being able to see straight underneath somebody's bed. Like, can you just imagine all the scary scenarios that could possibly happen?
I didn't think about it at the time.
Well, of course, I didn't either, because I was so little. I didn't have any experience with that kind of stuff. But now thinking back, I'm like, that is so creepy. Like, what in the world?
Yeah, I can see it.
Usually, though, underneath her bed was just chock full of stuff. Because whenever we had to clean our room, we just shove everything under her. Yeah, just shove everything under her bed. But the train's going by, so sorry if you hear it. But on this particular night, for some reason, maybe you had just really got on us about it that day, like checked under the bed to make sure we didn't do that.
Probably.
But it was completely clear. Like her bed, there was nothing underneath. Her bed was completely clear. So there was one night that I was asleep, And I woke up for some reason. I don't know why. I don't remember as a kid waking up a lot. I do now. I wake up all the time at night. But as a kid, I don't remember really why I had woken up. But I just kind of turned over in the bed to face underneath where her bed was. And this is going to be the weirdest ghost story anybody's ever heard, but when I looked underneath her bed, like facing her, like they were watching her sleeping, it was just like a pair of feet, just like a pair of gray feet. So I was like, oh, you know, in my mind, I'm like, well, maybe mom or dad got up to check on us, whatever. So I looked up to see who it was, and there was nobody there. And so I looked back down, and the feet were still there. It was almost like gray marble statue feet is what it looked like. Huh. They didn't move. They weren't walking around. I didn't hear them walk in and walk out. They were just there, like somebody was watching Courtney while she was sleeping, but they didn't. There was just feet. There was no rest of the body. Which, like I said, is the weirdest ghost story ever. Like,
did you tell Courtney that?
Yeah, she knows. She knows it. She doesn't really care.
Well, all right.
And I don't really remember what happened after that. I mean, I guess I just went back to sleep because I don't remember like laying there and watching them fade away, or like I said, watching them walk out. Mm-hmm. They were just there. And then I woke up the next morning. So that was my first weird experience. And three of the ones that I had when I was little was in this house.
In that same house?
In the same house. And I don't really... I know we lived in another house in Waxhaw before that, but I think I was too little to really remember that.
How old were you when this happened?
I want to say I was maybe like 4, 5. Maybe.
Around 4.
Yeah.
That's about the time.
Huh?
She wasn't old enough to know to be scared.
I didn't know anything about it.
And this was about the same time that she started like sleepwalking. And I would wake up, like, you know how you can be sound asleep and you feel like somebody's standing there staring at you? Yep, it would be Lindsay. I would open my eyes, she'd be standing right there staring at me. I'd be like, and then I would just guide her back to bed and put her back to bed. So, yeah.
Or like when I had a scary dream or something, and I would come and I'd be like, Mom, can I sleep with you? I had a scary dream. She'd be like half asleep. She'd be like, let's pray about it. And I'm like 4 years old. I'm like, that's not helping me. Like, what does that do?
I guess it helped me.
Yeah, and then she would just walk me back to bed, and that would be it. Like, let's pray about it. Like, okay, thanks so much. Oh gosh. Oh god. The next memory I have in that house. Now, I don't really know which one was first, because this one, like, let's say Courtney's bed is right here. My bed is like a little bit further right here. Like when you first walked into the room, my bed was right there. Courtney's was more in the corner, sort of. So they weren't perpendicular anymore. Like it wasn't in the same spot. We had pushed it over. I don't know why, and I don't know which one of these came first, but this one is also very weird. I don't know if it's as weird as the feet, but it's also very weird. So I had just woken up. It was like the middle of the night again. And I don't know why, like the whole house was quiet. And when I opened my eyes, I was like laying on my left side. So I was facing straight down the hallway. Don't ask me why. We kept our door open. Like it couldn't be any creepier. The door was open. There's a pitch black dark hallway, like right from the door. You could see down through the whole house. And so I was laying there, and then I kind of couldn't figure out why I had woken up. And I heard some kind of noise. that made me roll over. And I don't remember really what kind of noise it was, but I kind of rolled over on my back, and I didn't like prop myself up on my elbows. I just kind of like tilted my head down to look at the end of the bed, right? And so at the end of the bed, there was like some kind of figure that was like crouching down, right? And it was like crawling and walking really slowly around my bed. Like the end of my bed had like a footboard. I think that's what they're called, right? Mm-hmm. And it was curved like that. So it was like this big piece of plastic. So I could just see like the top, like the back of it. It was almost like it was hunched over, right? And it was walking so slowly, like it was going to come around the other side of my bed. But as it was walking, it was doing this really weird, like almost like it was hopping and like raising up a little bit, but it never raised up high enough for me to see anything else besides the back of it. Like I didn't see the head, I didn't see the end of it.
We're sure this wasn't Aaron.
No, I'm sure, because, and this was before we had any pets.
Okay.
Because it was like, and the only thing that I can really use to describe it, it was kind of like a cross between like a camel and a lion, because it was like almost a golden brown, and it looked like it had longer hair. Like it wasn't like a figure like a person. Mm-hmm. It was almost like it was some kind of really weird animal. But, you know, in my 4-year-old, 5-year-old brain, I'm like, okay, it's some kind of animal. I didn't really know to be scared, but I knew that I didn't want to see the rest of it. So I just threw my blanket up over my head. And then I woke up the next day. Now I know a lot of people will be like, okay, that's really weird. You probably dreamt it. And like, I understand that. But at the same time, it's like it happened yesterday. Like I can still see it as clear as day. If it was a dream, I don't think that I would remember it so vividly.
What about if it was a night terror or something like that?
But I don't think so, because I think if I had night terrors, it would have happened a lot more, and I would remember them a lot more. Maybe. It was like every now and then, like that happened, and then this happened. And then the next thing that happened in that house was also, it was strange, but it wasn't like I saw something. So me and Dad were home. You and Aaron and Courtney had gone out somewhere. I don't know if it was to church or to go get dinner or whatever. And Dad was in the back room playing video games. Like, you know, he was playing Nintendo. He used to play his baseball game all the time. You remember that?
Yeah.
And I was in the living room just watching cartoons. And hold on, let me scroll down and find it. So I was sitting there and I heard my name being called. And I went back to the back bedroom to see if it was Dad, because I just assumed that he was the one that was calling me and was like, needed something. So I went back to the back room and I was like, I asked him what he needed, or I said, hey, were you calling me or something? And he was like, no. So I was like, okay. So I went back and I sat down on the couch and I kept hearing it again. And it was.
So it sounded like him?
No, it was kind of like, I couldn't figure out who it sounded like, because it wasn't loud. It was just like a whisper. It was like a really quiet voice. Mm-hmm. Like picture in the movie It, when Beverly's like hearing those voices in the sink drain, so quiet. That's what it was like. And so it almost sounded like there was this vent on the wall, and it almost sounded like it was coming from there. And you're probably like, okay, well, it was probably the air coming through, but the air wasn't on. And I was just, every once in a while, I would just hear like the faintest little voice saying my name. And I thought it was Dad at first. I could have swore it was him, but it wasn't. And so I was like, again, I didn't know to be scared of it, so I just turned the TV off. And that was it. And I was like, nope.
Any ghost in that house, they're like, yeah, she ain't having it. We ain't gonna scare her.
And that's really the last one I remember, like as a kid. Mm-hmm. Nothing creepy happened when we moved, because we moved a lot when I was growing up. And so when we moved to Monroe, I don't really remember anything creepy happening there or our house in Wingate that we built, obviously, but who knows what the land used to be before we built on it. But I don't remember anything creepy happening there. And so I'm going to fast forward a little bit to when I went to college, because I went to Emory and Henry, which is a really old college. It was founded in 1836, right? And so the dorm that I lived in as a freshman was used as a makeshift hospital during the Civil War. And so there are all these stories about it being haunted. You know, it's like almost like each floor has a different ghost, like resident ghost.
How many floors were in that building? Was it 5?
I think 4.
4.
Because there was a basement and then there was 3 going up.
Okay.
So I'd moved in and I got unpacked and settled, and you know, I was having all this newfound freedom that I didn't have before, so I was just like in heaven. I loved it. Could do whatever I wanted at any time. I loved it. So we had, during that first little bit, right when you move in, there's different activities and stuff that you have to do as a freshman. Like there's orientation stuff you have to do. There's like a service project that you have to do. And one of the things that we had to do was kind of take this, it was almost like a math placement test to see which college math to put us in, because Emory is not, well, it is a university now. They kind of renamed it, added that to it, but it's not a huge university. It's more like it's a small school. It's more personable. You know your professors better. The class sizes are small. So I guess to me, doing those placement tests kind of reminded me more of high school, but at the same time, they don't want to put you in a geometry class where you're going to fail, which would have been me, because it's not my thing. Okay. So my roommate at the time and I had to go up the hill from our dorm to this other building to take the math placement test. So we're getting all of our stuff together. We're going out the door. She's kind of waiting for me in the hall. I locked the door, and then as soon as I let go of the handle, it was almost like something threw itself against the door from the inside. Like it was this huge bang. And we both kind of like backed up against the wall, and we were like, what in the world? Because we had been in there all day. There was nothing else in there. No animals, nobody else. And then as we got up to the other side of the wall, we started hearing like this scratching noise. It was almost like something was clawing the back of the door, because the door was wooden, right? And so we both just kind of like looked at each other, because it got really quiet, like it stopped. So we both kind of looked at each other, and we couldn't be late for our test, so we just left. We just left and walked up the hill. And then after the test, I don't remember which one of us got done first, but we didn't want to go back by ourselves, so we waited on the other one to get done. And so we got finished with our test, and we walked back down the hill to get back to the dorm. And we didn't want to go in there alone, so coming down, we had seen a couple of guys that were in our orientation group, and so we grabbed them, because we were like, if there's like an animal in there, I'm gonna get it. Like, somebody else is gonna have to grab that. And so we came and we unlocked the door, and as we unlocked the door and I kind of just pushed it open, like none of us went in, we were all just kind of standing in the doorway. It was like our entire room was just ransacked. Like our covers were torn off of our beds, our boxes were in the floor, stuff was turned over, and we all just kind of stood there looking around like, okay, that's cool, I guess. And I knew it couldn't be like an animal that had gotten in, because the windows were shut. And
did you think it was a person?
No, it couldn't have been, because she and I were the only ones that had keys to the dorm. We went up the hill, took the same test, came back down, and that was it. Like nobody else had keys to the room.
And nothing was missing?
Nothing was missing. It wasn't like anything was stolen. It was just like ransacked, just like messed up. And then I realized later on that the scratching noise couldn't have even physically happened, because there was like a big glass mirror that was covering almost all of the wood on the back of the door. So I was like, I don't really know how to explain that, but some other small things would happen. Just like when I was in the room by myself, there was a sink above the mirror that would kind of just open on its own. It didn't happen all the time. It
like
only
the
seemed
mirror?
to happen. Yeah, the mirror.
Open?
Did I say the sink?
Yeah.
The mirror would open on its own.
I
It
thought it
didn't
was just
happen.
thirsty.
It didn't happen all the time. It seemed like there were smaller things that would happen when she or I were in the room, but never us together.
Uh-huh.
And we started to notice, like, on the mirror on the back of the door, these like really weird, like elongated handprints started showing up. And it wasn't and we tested it out. It wasn't like somebody put their hand and drug it down. It was like a palm print and really, really long fingers, like crazy long. Not like some guy just came over to the dorm and put his handprint on the mirror. I think we even had a couple, those two guys put their hands up, and it was bigger than theirs. Like, it was just really, really weird, and couldn't explain it. Anytime I saw them on the mirror, I would just Windex and wipe it down, because I kind of had the idea of, like, I'm still having a good time. I'm off at college. I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do. I kind of went at it as like I'm not threatening to you. You don't have to be threatening to me. We're in here together, and we're just gonna
coexist.
We'll coexist peacefully. Like, I'm not trying to rile you up. Some of my friends wanted to get a Ouija board and come down and do it in the room, and I was like, absolutely not. I was like,
Good for you.
If they're there, that's fine, but I want to talk to them. We don't need to communicate. It's fine. But so word got around about this, and then all the rest of the girls in the hall that we lived on, like, this one girl said she saw a huge shadow figure in her room. One girl said something else. I don't remember what else had happened, but they got so scared that they all started sleeping in one room together at the end of the hall. And I just never really got there. You know what I mean? Like, it was freaky, but it had kind of calmed down. And at that point, I was just like, if it's here, it's here. And also, if it's my time, it's my time. Like, what am I going to do about it? I didn't think that everybody sleeping in the same room together would really deter a ghost, I guess. I don't know. And that might be, if I was a ghost, I'd be like, oh, they're all in here together. How easy. I'll just go haunt this room. I only have to do one room tonight. That's so good.
Well,
but
can I
go
ask
ahead.
you? I was going to ask you about, in that dorm, I remember the rooms, it was such an old dorm that the rooms didn't have individual bathrooms, and you had to go to the end of the hall and have this communal bathroom.
Yeah.
And that was
vintage.
Seemed creepy, but wasn't there a story about someone hanging themselves on that floor? Or
there was probably a story. I don't know if it was true.
Okay.
You know, there's always a story about somebody hanging themselves in the bathroom, and then it's haunted. And I remember now what it was. A couple of the girls had said that when they went into the bathroom that the showers would turn on, but there wouldn't be anybody there. And I was like, okay. That never happened when I went in there, thank God. But yeah, so that was an interesting time. But then after that, you know, that's a freshman dorm, so I didn't live there ever again during my time at Emory, and nothing else creepy happened. But I will say, when I first moved in, they still did like ghost tours around Halloween. Some of the like older students would lead these little ghost tours and ghost walks, and you could like do a mini ghost hunt or whatever, because it was almost like each building had its own story, kind of. And I went on one of them one time, and it was really interesting. But after that, I didn't stay in any dorms that were older. The rest of the dorms that I stayed in had kind of been built fairly recently, so nothing like that happened again at Emory, thankfully.
Yeah. I remember, I was going to say, I remember when she would tell me about this stuff that was going on. She'd call, you know, we'd be talking on the phone or whatever, and she'd be telling me this, and I was like, what?
Mom was like, no way. Like, her eyes get so big. She's like, no way.
That's cool stuff. So you never did see any besides the handprints on the mirrors. There was no scratches, or did you try to take any of the mirrors off the doors to see if there's something behind it? Or
I didn't, because I didn't know. I was tempted to, but it was kind of like stuck on there somehow. Like it wasn't hung on with nails or anything, and I didn't know if I could get it off, how to get it back on. So I was like, I'm just not gonna. I don't want to pay for that. So
it just happened. It happened random. There was nothing that set it off or caused the activity to be
not
more.
that I ever figured out, at least. And I feel like it kind of. I mean, there were a few instances where like the mirror above the sink would open, one of our closet doors would open or something in the spring, but for the most part, I think most of it just happened in the fall, but really quieted down throughout the year. So it wasn't like a constant ongoing, like, I've got a poltergeist in my room kind of thing. It just, every so often, something small and really weird would happen.
Yeah. Ugh. It had a weird vibe, that building.
It did, but I liked it at the same time.
Yeah.
Because it was very old. That building was very, very old.
What did they call it? Mawa?
Yeah, because it was called the Martha Washington, but everybody just said Mawa. Yeah.
Mawa.
Spooky, haunted. So if you go to Emory and you live in Mawa now, you're welcome.
Yeah.
Okay, so I feel like those are all pretty tame, I guess, compared to the last one that I have. Ryan's like, excuse me. And Mom already knows the last one because she was there. Because
we're crazy.
Yeah, because we're literally insane. So somewhere along the way, like when I was a kid growing up, I was such a scaredy cat. Like when I learned what to be scared of, I feel like I was just scared all the time of everything. Like I was so scared. I would go in your room all the time, and I'm like, I'm scared. I'm scared. I had a bad dream. I'm scared. So I was scared of everything. I don't know when the switch happened though, between then and now, where I like love everything spooky and scary. But Mom and I decided we wanted to drive up to Trans Allegheny Lunatic Asylum. You had been already before we went. I had never been. And so we wanted to go around Halloween because they have, how many buildings do they have? Is it just the two, or do they have?
They have the main long building and then the maximum security brick building where they have the haunted house. And then there's another some buildings behind it. Remember that old building behind it that had the dentist office and barbershop and the morgue? And yeah,
I remember. We didn't get to go to the morgue. I wanted to, but we didn't get to go. But they set up a big haunted house all throughout the criminally insane ward, which is like a separate building from the hospital.
It's like a 3-story separate building, and the whole place is like the haunted. It's the best haunted house ever.
It's the best one I've ever been to. Yeah. Like it was really good, and it wasn't too fast either. Like it's the whole thing you go through.
Yeah. Oh, it took us probably 25-30 minutes to get through it, right?
We'll get there.
I know what you're gonna say.
We'll get there. But Charles Manson stayed in the criminally insane ward actually for a little bit of this hospital. So I was like, oh, if we go, are we gonna get like a little glimpse of him? Like maybe his ghost is in there haunting. We didn't see him, thankfully. But so when we got to the asylum, we went straight away and we got our tickets for the historic tour of the building. This was during the day. And this building was built in 1864, and it looks, I should have got a picture to insert here. If you haven't ever seen a picture of it, you should look it up, because just the look of it is like,
we can put it on our socials.
Yeah.
It's the second largest sandstone building in the entire world.
And just by looking at it, you can tell exactly what it is. It's like, oh, that's a mental hospital. Like it just has that look about it. It's old, it's creepy, I don't know, it's just got a weird vibe to it. Now, it was really, really hot I remember it being really hot when we went, because it was around Halloween, but I think that they just had the AC like in the main part of the building where the offices and stuff still are. But like in the wings, when you went out to the different rooms, like patient rooms, I don't think there was any AC.
There was no electricity
down there,
around water.
I was like sweating when
Yeah,
we were going
it was
through the
hot.
tour. And it's sandstone, so it's going to be a little bit hotter. So we saw lots of old rooms and staff areas, and we heard a ton of like inserted spooky stories along the way. Mostly this one was just a historic tour about the building itself and how it was built and the people that worked there. There weren't a ton of scary stories on this particular tour, but people would ask, and the guides would just tell them a couple here and there. So all in all, there were probably like 10 to 12 people in our group and the tour guide. And about 15 minutes into the tour, we found ourselves in this like really big open room. It was just a large open space. And so we kind of all spread out and we were listening to the tour guide. And it turned out that the room that we were standing in was the one where they did the lobotomies. And Dr. Walter Freeman, which is like, he's one of the most well-known for lobotomies. I think he's the one that kind of invented it. He would bring his patients here and he would essentially use like an ice pick to go up through their eye socket, and he would just scramble it up. And so he thought that if he like twisted and got different parts of their brain, I guess that it would make them normal. And sometimes it did, rarely, if at all. And so our guide told us that after the lobotomies, sometimes their condition would improve a little bit. Sometimes they would resort back to like a toddler state of mind, like really young, can't take care of themselves anymore, don't know how to do anything, kind of. And sometimes they would have a seizure and then pass away directly after. And I'm not even lying to you. After our guide said that sentence, there was a guy about 10 feet in front of us. He fell straight back. The back of his head cracked on the floor, and he starts having a seizure. Mm-hmm. At this next second after he said that sentence about having seizures. And as bad as it is, like, of course your first thought is going to be like, oh, did they have a plant in the audience to scare us? Like, what is this going on? Like, but the noise that his head made when it hit the ground, I can still remember it. Like, yeah, it echoed through the room. It was hard. His glasses flew off. His wife and daughter are standing there. His daughter's like crying. She's scared. His wife doesn't know what the hell's going on. And we all just kind of stood there in shock first. Yeah, we were just shocked. And our guide, I think at first was like, okay, is this somebody just being dramatic and acting it out? But then it kept going. Like, it was a long seizure. Like, it just kept going. At least to me, it seemed like it lasted forever. But Mom went and she got his glasses and like handed them to his wife. And thankfully there were a couple nurses in the group, so they were able to like help him. However you help people with seizures, they were able to help him. And so he came back around, and so we were all just standing there, and the nurses were like asking his wife, does this happen a lot? Like, what's going on? And she was like, this has never happened. She was like, I don't know what's wrong. Maybe he has low blood sugar and just passed out. And then I was thinking maybe when he hit his head that hard, it just caused him to have a seizure. I don't know. I've just never heard that sound before. It was awful. And in the meantime, the guide, once he said, are there any medical professionals in this group? And those nurses stepped forward to put his head. Somebody had a jacket. They put his head on the jacket. And the guide had to run all the way to the front because his cell phone wouldn't work down where we were. And this building is a quarter of a mile long. Okay, it's huge. He had to run all the way back up to have them call the ambulance. Pretty good distance. And so they were taking care of him. I was kind of trying to see if his wife and daughter were okay, and
And so we waited there.
We waited there, and here comes the ambulance up the little drive, and our tour guide comes running back in. He's completely exhausted, out of breath, because he probably just ran a mile and whatever just to do that. And so he, they took him. He kind of took us to another little room, and so they get the guy and his wife and his daughter, and they take them in the ambulance. And so we're all just kind of standing there like, what the hell just happened? And he was like, do you guys want to continue on with the tour? Or I think he was like, we can give you refunds, or I don't know. And we were all just kind of like,
nobody said anything really.
No, we were all just kind of, and I was kind of like, I mean, are you good to continue with the tour? Like, this all just happened. You're exhausted. And sorry, Champ is like crying. I don't know what his problem is. He gets mad when it rains. He does not like it when it rains. He's so weird. So I was like, I kind of asked him, I was like, are you okay to continue with the tour? Because you just ran all that way. He was so out of breath, which I don't blame him. And it was hot anyways. Like, it was so hot in that building. And so we kind of just all took like a little 5-minute breather, and then we just continued on with the tour. And let me just say, if that had been me, if I was that tour guide, there's just no way that I could have continued on. Yeah. And he did. We went through, it was like nothing even happened.
And it was like a 90-minute tour.
It was a long tour. He told us every story.
He did.
About everything he could think of, and it was a good tour still, even despite that happening. It was, so props to him for even being able to do that. I don't remember his name at all, but
I don't either.
So
but tell about your camera, how you had that professional camera and you had it with us and it wouldn't focus in any of the rooms. So yeah, I was trying to take pictures with my cell phone.
Yeah, and I had my phone, but it wasn't like fully charged, and I think it was an older phone. And I was so excited because I had just gotten that camera too, and it was like taking beautiful pictures everywhere else, worked perfectly. But then when I took it to Trans Allegheny, could not get it to work at all. And so we went back to the hotel. After this tour, we went back to the hotel and just kind of hung out a little bit because we were gonna come back for the haunted tour at night. We were going to take like a haunted flashlight tour, and then we were going to do the haunted house, right? So we go back and we're in line to get our tickets for the haunted tour, because there was a few different ones you could choose from. And so we chose to do the one from Ghost Adventures, where like you could go to all the places that they went in Ghost Adventures. And the woman selling the tickets was like, when the Ghost Adventures team came out, everybody was so nice. Aaron was so nice. Zach wouldn't talk to anybody. He was a huge diva. He just refused to interact with any of us. I was like, girl, tell it. I was like, tell it like it is. Let me hear more. She is so funny. I wish we could have talked to her more.
Yeah.
But that's the one we wanted to do, because I loved Ghost Adventures when I was like in high school and college. That was my show. I loved Ghost Adventures. So I was like, oh, we have to do that one. That's so cool. So we got our tickets and we went to our spot, like to wait in the line for the tour to start. And it was Mom and I swear to you, like the rest of the entire group was like a professional football team. Like they were all giants, like big, like buff dudes.
Guys,
and then in the back, it's like me and Mom. Hey, we're back here, like we're so small. And so we're in this group, and we went down the hallway. All the lights are off because at this point it's like after dark, and all the lights are off. We have our flashlights going, and me and Mom are in the back of the group. And we're, the guide is talking, and we're in the back of the group, and I don't know if you remember hearing this, Mom, but it was like somebody was like whistling really quietly. And I thought for like the first 30 seconds of hearing it that it was somebody in our group.
Yeah.
Because it was us back there. It wasn't like we were all tightly walking together. We had kind of spread out a little bit because you could hear, the hallways echoed. Like it wasn't like you couldn't hear the guide. And so we had like Mom and I turned around because I was like, do you hear that? Mom and I turned around. We were in the back. There's these two huge guys in front of us, and they had kind of turned around too. Mom and I were like listening and trying to figure out what it was. We turned around. Those two guys were in the front of the group. Like, they had booked it. They were like, absolutely not. They like went up to the front of the group where the tour guide was. It was so funny. I was like, well, I guess we got
yeah, they stuck to that tour guide like glue.
Yeah.
For the rest of them.
They did. And so
it's better.
Yeah. And so we're looking in some of the rooms and we're listening to the guide's story. And sorry, Champ is like attached at my hip tonight. I guess he's like, Mom, are you scared? I'll be here for you. He's such a goober. We get to this one room where, and this is one of the main ghost stories from the hospital, is that, so it was overcrowded anyways, really badly. And so they had multiple patients per room, which was not, I think they were only supposed to have 2 max. And they had like, what, 6, 7, 8 people in a room. Like, it was very overcrowded. So we're in this room, and the guide's telling us the story that they had added this third guy into this room. And so they all are trying to sleep, and one of them...
But wait, the guy that they added was deaf and mute.
He was deaf and mute, and so one of the first guys in the room convinced the other that if they didn't kill him, he was going to take all of the air out of the room. I guess he was snoring or something, is kind of faintly what I remember. And so they got him, and they put his head under one of the bedposts. And they jumped on the bed until the bedpost went through his head and touched the floor. So,
but this was after they tried to hang him.
Oh yeah, they tried to.
They had pipes running up on the ceiling, like heating and water pipes, and they got a sheet and they tied it around his neck, and they tried to hang him twice.
I forgot about that.
And he recovered, and so the one guy told the other guy, we need to finish him. And so the bedposts were metal, okay? Yeah. And they were not, they went down to like, not a point, but enough of one that...
It wasn't like a huge bedpost. Like they were kind of skinny, because I think they had like a example cot in there or something the story, right?
The question I have is either the staff or the guy himself. I mean, how many attempted murder tries do they get before they kill this guy? I mean, he's in the same room with these guys. They're like, all right, they try to hang him twice, but no, they'll get along. They'll be just fine. Let's just leave him in there.
Well, no, this all happened in the course of like 30 minutes.
Yeah. This was like,
It was dark. It was in the middle of the night.
It wasn't over a few nights. It was like on the same night.
Yeah. And they did send people down to kind of do a bed check, but not like every hour on the hour or anything. And so after they killed this guy, they had a bathroom, and that was a corner room, and they had their own bathroom. And so they cleaned it up. They cleaned up all the blood, right? And just put him back in the bed like he was asleep. And then, of course, when it was found out, they questioned these two guys, and the one said, well, the ghosts told him to do it. That was...
I don't remember that part, that the ghost told him to do it.
I've heard that same story like every time I've been there, and there's more details that they add. Like different guides add more details to it. So I don't really know, but we do know someone was murdered in that room.
What I do remember is that after, because I don't remember what year this was, but I don't think it was a crazy long time ago, after they decided to close the hospital and they moved the patients elsewhere, he was able to get on some medication and actually started doing really well. Like the guy whose idea it was to do the bedpost thing. And did he get released?
He didn't get released, but he was doing so well once they got his medication correct and regulated that he was the greeter at the new mental hospital that they built down the road and took the patients to. And this didn't happen long before the Trans Allegheny closed, I think
in like the 90s.
In the late 80s or early 90s.
Yeah, I think. So it wasn't a crazy long time ago.
Right. Right. But it was a horrible story. I mean, if you're standing in the room and you're hearing this story and you're looking around and it's nighttime
And like
and
the
all
pipes are right there, the bed's right there.
you
Probably
can
not the
just
same
see
bed,
it.
but
You can just imagine it happening. And this
Yeah.
poor guy couldn't scream.
Couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
And so he, like, the guide tells us the story, and then he's like, okay, now I want everybody to turn off your flashlights, and we're gonna listen and see if we can hear anything. If you want to ask some questions, you can ask some questions. So, and Mom goes, and it was so, like, it echoed in the room, like, it was so loud.
It came out of my mouth before I realized I even
said everybody was dying laughing. And so we all turned off our flashlights. Mom was like this on my arm, like she was squeezing my arm so hard, and you just know in the dark her eyes were like so big. She was not having it. She was so scared. And so we all just kind of stood there in the dark. Nothing really happened. And so we were just like, all right. So we turned our flashlights back on. Well, then he goes, okay, so for this next story, we're going to go down the stairs and I'm going to take you to another room, but I need to stay up here and make sure everybody gets down there. So I need somebody to lead the group down the pitch black stairs.
Yeah, the stairwell.
Silence.
The stairwells were creepy.
Yeah, silence in the whole room. And it's me and Mom and like a group of like huge 6 foot plus. Who do you think went first down the stairwell? Nobody else was going forward. So I was like, all right, well, I guess I'll go. And Mom was like, where are you going? She's like, where are you volunteering? What are you doing? Like, she was perched on my shoulder the whole time we're going down the stairs. She was so mad. She was like, I can't believe you made me do this first. Well, we had flashlights, so it was, you could see where you were going. It was fine. And so we went down there and we just continued on with the tour. Like, I don't really remember a ton of other stuff from, like, a ton of other stories from it. I'm sure they told stuff about ghost adventures. And I do remember one part. We were in which hallway was it? I don't remember what hallway it was, but not on Ghost Adventures, but Nick's spinoff show. Nick was one of the investigators. His spinoff show, they had, was it the Creeper?
Yeah, the Creeper.
Called it. And
you can look it up on YouTube. Yeah.
You can find it on YouTube. They're like shooting down the hallway and they're talking amongst themselves, and you just see this figure like almost melt down the wall and like crawl, like really creepily crawl across the floor and just kind of disappear. And so they told us that story, and then they didn't show us the video because nobody had service, but Mom and I went back to the hotel and watched the video later, and we were like, oh my god, ew. It's a really weird video if you want to watch it. And I don't remember what his show is called. Do you remember what his show is called?
I don't remember. We can find it and put it.
It's Nick Groff, his investigative show. Anyways, so we went on our tour and we continued, and the only other thing that I remember besides those two was that at the end of the hallway, there's a room that has a lot of little toys in it, because that's Lily's room, and Lily is the ghost of a little girl that lived at the asylum. She didn't, like, there was nothing mentally wrong with her, but I think she was just kind of dropped off by a family.
No, I think she was born there. Like, her mother was there, because the patients would get, they would sexually attack each other. Sometimes people would end up pregnant, and if the doctors didn't abort the babies, they had the babies, and she was kind of a little girl that had kind of grown up there, I guess.
But she was kind of taken care of by, it was like a wing of the hospital that was more older ladies. And they kind of took her in, and so her room is at the end of that hallway. It's got all these little toys in it. And so we heard that story, and we heard that she really likes females. She doesn't really gravitate towards males at all. Most of the interactions that people have had with her have been females, right? So that was like the very end of the tour. And after that, we kind of went over into the side room. Our guide was like, okay, who is gonna do the haunted house and who's gonna like leave or go on another tour? So it was me and Mom and like 2 other ladies were gonna go do the haunted house after. Now, and Mom and I had, when we were waiting in line for tickets, had stood outside and watched people exit this door all night. Okay, and this door that we were supposed to go out was like this really rickety wooden screen door. Like, it wasn't anything super, you know, super max facility. Like, you can't get out of this, it's locked. It was just a really old rickety screen door. And our guide had, his flashlight was like a lightsaber, right? So it was really cool flashlight. But so he's holding his flashlight in one hand and he's trying to open the door with his other hand. He's like locking it, unlocking it, trying to open it. Had kind of kicked it at one point, and this thing was not budging. So I was like, okay. So I kind of stepped up to where he was, and this was probably like 10 feet or so away from you and the other ladies. Like, we were not standing close. And I kind of stepped up to help him. Like, I was holding his flashlight and I had my phone's flashlight. And so he was like pulling on this door with his whole weight, and this door was not budging at all. And he was like, okay, I don't know if it's locked or what's going on. And I just kind of like jokingly said, like, oh, haha, I guess they don't want us to leave. And I felt these fingers go down my back. And at first I thought it was Mom telling me, like, don't say that, like, haha, you're so funny, but be quiet, like, that's not really funny. So I whipped my head around, but this wasn't even like 2 seconds later. Like, it all happened so fast. I turned around because I was gonna like laugh with her about the joke, because I thought it was her that did that, and she's like 10 feet back with those other ladies.
And I saw you whip your head around, and I was like, I thought, well, she wants to tell me something, but
well, and I did in the moment. Like, it all happened so fast, and the guy's opening the door, he can't get it, and Mom and those other ladies are back there, and the guy decides, okay, I'm just going to take y'all back out the front because I don't know what's wrong with this door, I can't get it open. And so just like that, we were on our way out, and then we were outside, and
but it's so creepy that happened right after you said that, because I heard you say that.
Yeah.
And I was like, why can't this dude get this door open? Am I going to have to go up here and open it?
It was just a weird situation.
Yeah.
And I don't think I said anything to you until we were outside, because I didn't want to freak you out.
Right.
Because I knew I had like bruises on my arm at this point from Mom being perched on me the whole night. And so I was like, well, I'm not going to say anything. And
when we got outside, didn't I ask you what was that about?
And I was like, did you touch me in that last room? Like, did you touch my back? And you were like, no, I wasn't up there with you. And I was like, okay, well, something touched my back. Because it wasn't even like, it wasn't a poke. It wasn't like a random object brushing. Like, I felt distinct fingers, at least 3 fingers going down my back. And I can't explain it. That's just one of those things. Like, logically, my brain wants to say, okay, well, maybe it was your hair, but my hair was pulled over my shoulder. And then I'm like, okay, well, maybe it was your bag, but I didn't have a bag on. I just had my keys and my phone on me. So I don't know. I don't know what that was. And so then we went into the haunted house. Because, I mean, what can you do after that? You just got to take it and move on. We're going to the haunted house, whatever. So we had fast pass tickets, so we didn't have to wait in line. We just went right up. And so we formed the first part of our group, right? It's me and Mom in the front. Well, it's me in the front because Mom is like pushing me from behind.
I wasn't going in the front.
Mom, when she does haunted houses, she's not there to play, okay? She's not there to like, let's walk slowly so we can get through every jump scare. She literally pushed me through that haunted house so fast that we left our group and we caught up to the tail end of the group before us. Like, we were running through that haunted house. We were going.
They looked at us like, who y'all?
Yeah. But one of the coolest rooms that I remember, it was like you walk into this room and there's the path that you're going down, and it's marked by these clothes racks on either side of you, just filled with like clothes and coats and everything. But their actors are like grabbing at you from inside the clothes. And I just thought that was cool because I hadn't seen that in any other haunted house. And I was like, oh, that's creepy. It was good. And I can't even remember exact details of the whole thing because it was like we were in there for a good little while. It was all 4 floors. It was really long. And I don't know, it was a lot of fun. And then we came home and that was that. And then Mom decided, she was like, hey, do you want me to get you tickets? I can get us tickets to do like an overnight for your birthday. And I was like, yeah, like that sounds really, really great. So we get there and we had a good time. It was spooky, but I think because so much had happened at the first couple of tours that we went on, I had like really high expectations. If we're gonna spend the night there, like stay there all night, oh my gosh, like it's gonna be crazy. And we had been hearing all these stories about people that couldn't make it all night because they got too scared, and I don't know. But anyways, I hadn't thought about this before we went. Like at this point in my life, I was not doing well. Like I had just gone through a breakup. I was at a really, really low point, and I was just kind of going through the motions at this point. And I was like, oh, okay, well, we'll go and that'll be a fun time and whatever. So we go. Nothing really happens. We did like a little digital like EVP thing, but I don't think we got anything on it. Like we tried to be investigators, but we didn't really get anything on it. And so then like we came home.
But we made it the whole night.
And it's funny because as the night went on, you would think that as you go to the different places and different floors, you would get more scared with different places. By the end of it, we were chilling. We were just sitting. We were sitting in the hallway that the creeper had crawled on, in the dark, just sitting in chairs, just chatting. We were just chatting, and I was like, man, I didn't think we'd be here at the beginning of the night.
But I told Lindsay, it was heavy. It felt sad. That's the main emotion I felt, was sadness and just a heavy kind of.
It did. And I think because I was already depressed at this point, like when we were there, I was just kind of like, I don't know, like I felt it hard. I was like, there's really sad vibes in this place. And what got me the most, we didn't see this part on our first tour, but we kind of went, I think it was around where the kitchens were. They had these big posters set up with like pictures of these women and their stories. And a lot of the first women that were admitted to Trans Allegheny were taken there because they were too outspoken, or they were too different, or their husbands and their families just didn't want to deal with them anymore. So they just dropped them off and left them. And they could back then. They could do that. Mm-hmm. And I was just, on the way home, I was just thinking about it. I was like, man, that probably would have been me. Like, that could have been, if I lived back then, because I'm pretty outspoken. Like, I'm very independent. I do my thing. Like, that could have been me. And so that just really, that hit hard. So when we got home, now before we went, and even the first time when we came back, the house was fine. I had already lived there for like 3 years, never had anything creepy happen. But when we came back from that last overnight stay, it was like weird things started happening, and my house had this really weird vibe to it. And maybe it was just because I was feeling very dark at this point that my house felt very dark. But it was also, Champ would get mad. Like, my basement in this house, and this house was old, like it was a really old house. My basement was kind of situated in the middle of the house. The door was there, and then you would go down the stairs, and it's like a dirt floor kind of basement. It's finished, like there's no openings to the outside, but it's just old. Like, it looks like a place that you would like hide a body in. Like, it's just not good vibes down there anyways. But I noticed that he started getting randomly really mad, and he would like jump off the couch, and he would run over and stand at the door, and he would growl really low. When he is like seriously mad about something, like he'll growl at like thunder and bark and cats and stuff, but there's only been a couple times. But when he gets like seriously really mad, like he's about to attack somebody, he growls like really, really deep in his chest, and I just know automatically like he's pissed. So I noticed that he had started doing that, and I was like, what is going on? I was like, why are you doing this? And so one night I was like laying in bed, and it was the middle of the night. I woke up, but in my dream before I woke up, I was dreaming about Courtney used to live in this townhouse, and there was wooden steps from the garage up to the kitchen. And I was dreaming about somebody going up those steps and like the sound that it was making. But then I opened my eyes and I was awake and I could still hear the sound. And it sounded like there were really heavy, slow footsteps coming up those wooden stairs of my basement from the bottom up. Now, I had like one of those little slide locks on it. That's about all I had on it. And so I was laying there, and at first I was like, okay, well, I'm just hearing what I heard in my dream, like I'm still half asleep. But then Champ started growling really low, and I was like, okay, so I'm not crazy. I was like, something is going on. And so I was laying there, I was listening, and it stopped. Like, it got really quiet, kind of faded out, and it stopped. And I was like, well, I gotta use the bathroom now, so I might as well go ahead and get up and see what's going on. And so I went, and I was like standing in front of the door, and we were just kind of listening. And it's so funny because usually when he gets upset, he's like upset for a while. He's loud and he's barking, and it's hard to calm him down. But it was almost like he was listening too, because he got really quiet and we were both standing there. Now, I was standing in front of the door and I was listening, but it was almost like, you know how when somebody walks up beside you or behind you and you can feel that they're there? That's what it felt like. It felt like if I were to open the door, something was on the other side. It just felt like there was an energy there. And of course it wasn't like an actual person, because you couldn't get into the basement but through the front door, and nobody had come in my house because Champ would have absolutely let me know. And so I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna mess with this. I was like, tomorrow in the daytime, I'll go down and I'll look and I'll just check everything out, make sure there's no animals or anything down there, because I was like, okay, well, I'm feeling something. Maybe somehow like a raccoon or something got down there. But raccoons do not make like heavy booted footsteps. So I was like, okay. But of course my brain's trying to rationalize everything. And so I used the bathroom, went back to bed. It was fine. The next day I came home from work and it was bright and sunny, and it had been a good day at work, and I was in a better mood. So I opened the door and I went down there, and there was just no traces of anybody or anything down there at all. And it was like there were no animal droppings, which you would find if there was an animal down there at all at any point. Everything was still sealed up tight, like nobody had gotten in there, nothing was moved around. And so I was like, okay, I just don't know what's going on. And so I texted my landlord about it, and I was like, hey, some really weird stuff is going on at the house. And I kind of just explained the situation. He was like, I'll put some animal traps outside, but you might just have a ghost. And I was like, sir, that's absolutely not what I wanted you to say. But so he puts animal traps outside.
He really said that?
He really said that. But I mean, he was really nice to me anyways. Like, all 5 of those years I lived there, and it's raining again, so Champ is mad, just FYI. He was really nice, so we kind of joked around like that anyways, and it was fun. But the last big thing that I remember at that house before it all died down was that that same thing happened again, but it was like right as I was going to bed. And I was so convinced. I was like, there has to be somebody down there. I was like, there has to be. If it sounds like footsteps, Champ is this mad, sniffing under the door. Like, and he does this thing when he gets mad where he like kind of shakes his feet, like, how bulls do in the dirt when they're about to charge. That's what Champ does. Like, he gets so mad. And so he was.
But you called us that night. I remember you called us.
I called you guys, and I was like, there has to be somebody here. I was like, I'm convinced. And so
I said, call the cops.
And so I did. I called the police station. I didn't call 911 because I was like, well, it's not an emergency and I'm not going to tie them up. But I was like, hey, I was like, whenever you guys get a chance, if it's convenient, can you please come look in my basement, because I think there's somebody there, and I live alone and I'm a small female, and just please come check. And she was like, okay, honey, we'll send somebody right out. Like, she was so nice. And literally like 2 minutes later, there's like 2 cops at my door, and my poor neighbors probably thought that I got murdered or something, because their like lights are flashing. I was like, you don't have to flash your lights, like how embarrassing, like turn the lights off. And so they're flashing their lights, and so I let him in. I was like, here's my basement. I was like, I don't even want to touch the door. The lock is right there. If you could just go down and check, that would be so great. And so he went down there, turned the light on. He even got his flashlight and like looked in every little nook and cranny, every little corner. And he came back up the steps and he was like, "Ma'am, I'm sorry. I think you just have a ghost." I was like, "Thank you so much, sir, for telling me that." And then leaving, he was like, "If anything else happens, just give us a call. We'll be on patrol all night." And I was like, "Cause what are they gonna do? They're gonna come down and go down the basement steps again and then come back up? I'm not gonna bother them with that. They checked. There's nobody down there, so whatever." Well, like right around that time, like went to the doctor, got on some really good anxiety, antidepressant medicine, and kind of got my mental health back where it needs to be. And stuff just stopped happening. And nothing had happened for a while. I ended up moving because I moved jobs. And so I ended up moving, but nothing had happened for the longest time. And nothing has happened since. Like, nothing happened in my old apartment. Nothing has happened in this house, thank God. But I kind of, like, trying to explain it to myself, I kind of just feel like when we went to that place that was so dark and depressed, the energy about it was just so off that maybe something there kind of sensed that I was similar to that at that point and was like, okay, I'll go with her for a little bit. And then I got better and they're like, I'm bored, I'm leaving. That's the only thing I can think of. Like, if that stuff's real, that's the only thing that my brain could rationalize it with, because there were no animals down there was no people down there. Those noises don't just, how do they happen by themselves? How do footsteps coming up wooden stairs, how does that sound just happen on its own if nothing is there to make it? But it felt like something was there, like at the door. It really felt like something was there, but I never
So you
saw
think
anything.
Maybe when we were at the Trans Allegheny that last time when we did the all-night lock-in, maybe something kind of attached and came home with you.
Yeah, because I don't know if you remember, but like I was not okay. Like I was not doing well. And I don't know, it was just the same kind of vibe as the vibe that was already there. So I think being in that, a more vulnerable mental state would make it easier for something to hitch a ride with me, I guess.
Well, and I knew I knew that you were kind of down, but I thought, well, she likes going, to places like this, so we'll go. We'll have a great time.
I did have a good time. It's not that I went and I was miserable the whole time. It's just mentally I was not.
Yeah.
I was not in a good place.
Well, and it's heavy. It's heavy. Yeah. Even when you take a tour in the daytime.
Yeah.
Even if it's not a ghost tour and it's just their regular tours, it's a heavy vibe when you hear all the things that happen there. And there are a lot of other places like that, to mental hospitals that have been abandoned and prisons and things like that. But yeah, I got to experience a little bit of that with you, and we did have a good time. People thought we were crazy. Like, people in our family is like, you're gonna do what?
Yeah.
But yeah, we did it, and we made
I would go back. I would do it again. I would go back and do it again.
I would definitely do the haunted house again. That would be awesome. I really want to do an on-site investigation. I want to do the all-nighter again, and like take Ryan, and if we can get our other podcast friends to go with us and do, like, I think it'd be so cool, because when you do the all-night lock-in, you have a lot of time on your own. They take you like up on the hour, they'll take you to another floor, and the guide will spend maybe 10 minutes telling you stories about that floor, where it's supposed to be the most haunted, a little bit of the history. And then you're on your own. You can just explore, like, all by yourself.
That'd be neat, because most people that do this type of stuff, they have a higher sensitivity or more susceptible to those type of things. And kind of like to your point, Lindsay, when you're in a certain state of mind, or you're investigating or drawing near or like close to a certain feeling, that stuff kind of draws towards you, like you talked about.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of curious about, like, the landlord with the whole ghost, did you check into the background of that place? I mean, did you find out if there's anything? Because, I mean, I understand playing around and messing around, but it seemed kind of odd. He's like, oh, maybe it goes and you call the cops, and he's like, oh, maybe it's just haunted, instead of saying, hey, well, this is just a young lady here by herself. Let's not scare her. Hey, it's just an old house. It's just settling. The wood cracks.
Like, tell me anything else, but that it's a ghost. No, I didn't look into the history of the house. I know it was super old because there were no like fixtures at all in the living room, and that was something that just told me it was pretty old. I mean, usually most houses have some kind of light in the ceiling. There was no light fixtures in the living room at all. There was no trace of them. So I just had a lot of lamps, but no, nothing had happened up until that point. And then when I started feeling better, it just stopped and nothing happened again. So I don't know.
I can imagine being the cops getting a call. Oh, it's just that ghost house again. Yeah, we'll go check it out. So you guys don't know about what's going on.
Like maybe somebody got like crazy murdered in there and just nobody ever told me.
And nobody, oh gosh, don't say that. Well, I know too that a lot of times in like poltergeist stories that you read or ghost stories, especially if there's a lot of emotional upheaval, they're drawn to that. And a lot of them have like teenagers involved, and people say, oh, teenagers are putting off all this angst and energy, and that is what draws these spirits or whatever they are. So, I mean, I don't know. There's probably something to that, your mental state at that time.
Yeah. And I think like just attracts like, you know what I mean? Like energy, similar energy is always going to find each other. And that's the only way that my brain can rationalize any of that. It was just a really weird time in my life.
Yeah, and you never dreamed you'd be doing a podcast and tell that story on the podcast, I'm sure.
Yeah. But I always like, when we go to places like that, I always want to see something. Because to me, like, if I can see it, then it's real. If I'm just hearing noises, I'm like, did that really happen though? Like, was that real? But I always want to see something, but I never see anything. And I don't know if maybe I just want it too bad that it's like, no, she's desperate. I'm not going to show her.
Something if you were to open the door to the basement.
What'd you say?
Sorry, my voice is about.
No, it's okay.
You think if you would have opened the door to the basement, what do you think would have happened, or you would have saw?
I don't know. And that's one of those times where, like, I just was not brave enough to face that. Like, I want to see stuff, but I want to see it if it's, like, far away from me, like, down the hall. And then I want to see it. But if it's, like, right in front of my face.
Yeah.
So if it happens again, you're still not opening the door, or is it, like, regret? Like, I wish I would have opened it.
You know what? I never have thought about that. I've never had any regrets for not opening the door right when that happened, because I feel like it always happens in the middle of the night. It's always like the white girl, the blonde white girl that is stupid at the beginning of the movie and goes down the steps and then gets like her head chopped off or something. And I was like, I am going to be the minority here. I do not want to do that. And so I've just minded my own business,
Yeah.
That's funny.
One thing that she forgot to tell about that daytime tour is, okay, so she told you about the guy passed out having a seizure, and then her camera wouldn't focus at all. And then when we got back to my Jeep after that, and we were getting ready to, I had started up the Jeep, got the air conditioner running, and we were getting ready to pull out and go back to the hotel. Her camera turned on and off and on and off by itself.
I forgot about that.
She had even taken the battery thing off of it. Yeah, and I was hearing this noise, and I was like, I was seeing that green light, and I was like, what is going on? Because it was like in the floor there. And it was weird.
I forgot about that. Yeah, that was weird.
And that hotel we stayed in was a little bit sketch. I mean,
it was kind of sketchy.
West Virginia is like driving back in time. Like you're back in the 60s.
It's a really small town.
50s,
yeah. It's a cute town. I think it's cute, but it's really small.
And it's got a weird vibe. I think it does. Got a weird vibe.
I think that building just being there kind of sets a certain tone for the surrounding area.
I will find some of the pictures that I took and post them on our socials, because it's a pretty popular place now. A lot of people, go there for paranormal investigations and things. But maybe maybe when we go back, something will happen. There are also other places I'd like to go.
Yeah. We have a whole list of places that
we want to do on-site investigations. Yeah. But anyway,
that's my story. That's my ghost story, and I know it's really weird. Ghost feet. I don't know what to tell you.
Those feet were weird.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost too weird. Like if I couldn't make it up. You know what I mean? Like it's too strange. And why would anybody want to see ghost feet? I don't know.
If I was Courtney, I would be the one freaking out. It's standing facing her bed, like not moving. And then when you were telling that story, I was like, I don't have gray feet. It was weird.
It was like a marble statue, is what.
Like it was bare feet.
Just bare feet.
Wow, that's crazy.
And they weren't like old or scary looking. They were just feet. They were just feet. Standing stock still. Like it was almost like there was a statue there, but there wasn't the top half.
Yeah.
They were just feet.
Weird.
And I was gonna say with that too, I almost thought, like, what are those things called that you can tuck into the bottom of the bed and
the bed skirt?
Yeah, there was a bed skirt. And so I almost kind of thought, because I could see the feet and then I could see the bed skirt, I thought that it was just blocking the rest of the legs. But then when I looked a little bit closer, it was like the feet, the bed skirt, like the feet just stopped, like right above the ankle, like they didn't come up.
Oh,
it just stopped.
Oh,
so like when I say feet, like that's all there was. It was just feet.
Yeah,
there wasn't anything else.
Lower legs, nothing.
No legs, no. Yeah. So I don't know.
And the story that you told about hearing your name, we are going to do a really good episode about mimics one of these days, because that reminded me of that.
I know that makes me sound insane. I get it. But I can't explain it. And it's not ever happened again. It's not like I'm just out here on the regular hearing voices all the time. It just, it was weird. I don't know how to explain it.
Right. And you were just little. I mean, you were very young when we lived there.
Yeah. Really small.
Well, some of these I knew, some of them I didn't. So, wow. I hope your mom hasn't traumatized you by making you sleep in the toddler bed at the foot of Courtney's bed.
It is what it is now.
It is what it is. Well, someday I'll tell a few of my stories, but we'll have something else in store for you next week. So be watching our socials, and we'll share some of the pictures and links. Maybe we can find the link, the YouTube link that's got the creeper video on it, and share that.
Ryan, do you have any last thoughts?
Yeah.
Well, I thought this was very interesting. Like I said, I hadn't heard these stories before, and it's cool to hear. I really liked the college dorm story. That was really cool.
Oh, yeah.
And if I would have been the guide on the tour that you guys took, even though I'd have been concerned about the gentleman that had the seizure, in my mind, I would have first and foremost made sure he was fine, right? And then, of course, you check with the group like he did. But, once all that was settled and you made sure everything was fine, my mind works differently. I'm like, if this is happening right now, I can't wait to see what happens next. Right?
Oh, gosh.
It would be gone. I mean, like, look, I have to go see what's going to happen now.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of,
The weirdest part was that it happened as soon as that sentence was out of that guy's mouth.
His mouth, and it just happened.
And the guy just went.
That's why I was like, okay, this guy has to have been planted, because the timing was just too perfect.
Yeah.
But you cannot fake cracking your head like that. And the floor is concrete. Like it was not. We weren't on hardwood. We weren't on carpet. Like it was a concrete floor.
Yeah.
And he cracked his noggin. It was bad.
And like I said, these are good stories. And, just if anybody else has these stories, haunted hospitals, EMT ambulances, I've got some more stories. I know there's a haunted graveyard in Gatlinburg that I went to that I've got a cool story or two about that, maybe for a future episode. That's something, if you guys are ever in there, we can go over and check out one day. It's really cool. And some really, really strange things happened. And there were some people that are very, very skeptical.
Mm-hmm.
Were scratching their heads or like, there's no way that just happened. Because it was like you said, it was just something happened. And then something mysterious, supernatural happened in correspondence exactly the way it was supposed to.
Oof.
And nothing else was around, which is cool. So, like I said, send all your reader stories, questions, maybe suggestions on future episodes, places you might want us to investigate or maybe to do research on. Send it to sirensofthesupernatural@gmail.com. And of course, you guys can lead us into our socials. My voice is gone. They're probably like, why y'all let this guy talk?
Bless his heart.
I'm like, a very sick Kermit the Frog or something.
Oh, well, we hope you feel better. And on that note, follow us on our socials, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. We're Sirens of the Supernatural, and then on TikTok, Supernatural Sirens. We're getting a lot of engagement on TikTok. TikTok seems to be real popular right now, and on Instagram. So Facebook, not so much, but I think a lot of people are moving away from Facebook and moving toward TikTok, Instagram, those things. But we enjoy doing this every week for you guys. I think we do it for ourselves too, actually. Yeah. But anyway,
for Champ.
Be watching the socials. Hey, Champ.
He always comes over at the end. He always comes over to say hi.
He wants to say bye to everybody.
Yeah. So catch us on YouTube. If you're a listener out there and you're just listening, every now and then go catch us on YouTube. You'll see some funny facial expressions and our doggies sometimes. And so, yeah, it's just a family affair over here. And we think of you guys as part of the family. So we'll say good night on that note. And we will leave you with Stay spooky.
Thank you, guys.